Hello everybody, and welcome to Module 1 section on Quality Matters. In this section we're going to talk about Standards 2 and 3. Standard 2 talks about learning objectives, and the learning objectives are the foundation that the course is based upon, and they are really just the key. In fact, Standard 2 is noted by Quality Matters as being the most important standard in the rubric. And you may wonder if it's the most important, why isn't Standard 1? But Standard 1 is about the introduction to the course, how the course gets started and everything. And while that is, of course, very important, the foundation that the class is built upon, your learning objectives, really is the most essential. Because of the importance of learning objectives, it's essential that they're measurable and stated clearly, and stated from the student's standpoint, letting your students know exactly what's expected of them as they're moving through the course and where it is that they're going. They've taken Standard 2 and sort of distilled it down into a single sentence, that quality is measurable objectives that are consistent with the module level objectives, and we'll talk about that in a second, that are written from the student perspective with instructions on how to meet them that are appropriate for the level of the course. So you need to do all of that in your learning objectives, which can seem rather mountainous. But for the sake of our little training course here, I just really want you to focus on having learning objectives and having ones that are measurable. And I mentioned that we'd come back to module level objectives. That means that you don't only want to have objectives for your whole course, but if you break the course down into pieces, like a lot of people break their course down into weekly pieces, or some people break their course into 3 pieces, or however you break it down, that for each piece there are outcomes that then lead into the course outcomes. If you choose to do more study of the Quality Matters rubric, you'll get to spend a lot of time learning about the different types of objectives and how they work. But for this section, we really just want to focus on making sure that we've got outcomes and that they are that they're measurable. So they want to begin with an action verb, and you want to make sure that they're really precisely describing behavior that can be observed or evaluated. And I love this next page that really just sets it down. Upon the completion of this course, or upon the completion of this module, the student will be able to do something. And that something is never understand, because you can't measure understanding. You can't observe understanding. So what will the student be able to do? And there's this fabulous list of sort of action words that show things that students can do called the Helpful 100, and I've included that in your readings as optional reading if you could use some help trying to figure out what exactly your students will be able to do at the end of your course. So Standard 2, looking at measurability. We'll also be looking at Standard 3, which looks at assessment and measurement. And as we were just talking in Standard 2, your learning objectives have to be measurable, but how are you measuring them? And that is what we get at in Standard 3. So you're going to look at your assessments, the assignments that you have, the tests that you have, if you have quizzes, if you have projects, all of those different things, and looking at how they align with the outcomes. Can you explain how each one of those assignments helps students get to each of your outcomes, and can you equally show how the outcomes are tied to one of the assignments, so that that it's clear that by doing the assignments the students will reach the outcomes for the course. So all of that is tied together. So when you're reading about Standard 3, it just helps you look at your assignments and make sure that they should all be there, or that some aren't missing. And I'll tell you, when I first did this for my class, I discovered some legacy assignments there that I loved, that I'd had for years, but that as the outcomes for the course changed, and usually your outcomes are written by the department, not by you, and those changed, but I've discovered that my course was not changing to really suit the outcomes, and that I had to get rid of a couple of assignments and adjust a few assignments. So I want you to think about being open to making those kinds of changes. Again, just a word about alignment, that you want to make sure that areas 2 and 3 align, and be open to the changes that might be needed if you discover that your course isn't quite as well aligned as you had originally hoped. Anyways, remember that this is just an intro to QM. Don't get all bogged down. Read the annotations for clarity on QM, and good luck.